Hi, everyone. Wow, I think the last time I was up on the bima was maybe my bat mitzvah. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it is very touching to be here and to see all of you and to know that beyond the crowd that's here, that what's going to be said tonight is going to be transmitted further. So I'm Karen Avraham. I'm, as our guest just said, I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at Tel Aviv University. I have been for almost a year now. I do have the very fortunate to spend my summers in Seattle working with Professor Mary Claire King at the University of Washington because we have an NIH grant together. And this is just one of many things that I could imagine that we could all lose. So we've heard a lot of dire news, but I'm gonna keep going. I think that many of you know that Israel and the Jewish people have always prided themselves on education. I think one of the major aspects, the successes of Israel in the last 75 years has been that Israel has been just a beacon, a leader in research, in medical technology, in medical breakthroughs, and many will say that the healthcare system is one of the best in the world, and certainly it goes without saying that the research establishment all over Israel is. But we are actually at the risk of losing a major portion of that. There are dangers like tenured professors being told they no longer have tenure because they're going to stand on a stage like I'm doing today. I'm showing you some pictures up here in the top for those of you who can see. In the lower two panels, I'm actually demonstrating with the other deans at Tel Aviv University. And if you had asked me a year ago if I would be out there as one of my jobs, so to say, as dean, I would have just laughed at you. Because we have always prided ourselves in academia of being apolitical. We don't get involved in politics. That's for something else. And maybe this is actually a warning to all of us that it's time for all of us who care so much about Israel and about the future of Israel to get involved in politics. Politics doesn't have to be the dirty word. Politics can be the place that we express ourselves, that we have a voice, that we make a difference, that we make sure that those that are educated, that have scientific and medical careers, who care about the future of Israel, are going to be out there and are going to make a stand. There's a need for us to join forces for unification. We are having what I would consider a civil war. Not all the religious people are bad guys. Our Jewish religion is a beautiful one. It's what brings us here to this place this evening, and it's what's created Israel so many years ago. And if we lose that ability to see that education, that moving forward, that having light is something that's going to put us together, then we're really going to move back to the Dark Ages and to a place that Israelis and Jews should never belong. So I think that the message I want to tell you is the harm that we are now having in academia and in the medical establishment. You can see up the woman in red up there. She's on her knees for an hour at a demonstration where the president of our university spoke. And the fact that a woman in Israel will be dressed like this is just catastrophic to think about. We have worked so hard with women being leaders in the army, in the medical establishment, in academia, as CEOs of startups. Really, I think in some ways, despite where the place of women are in many places in the world, Israel has been a leader in pushing women forward. The last time when I ran to be dean, there were 4 outstanding women running to be dean of a faculty of medicine. I think that says so much. Over 50% of our graduate students, of our medical students, are women. And so if we're going to be in a place that we're going to be repressed, that we're going to be told that we can't study, we've seen examples of that in other places of the world, we know that it's going to be catastrophic. If we're going to see things like in the hospitals that certain people, certain races are not going to be cared for in a hospital, if they're going to try to induce therapy against LGBTQ, if Arabs are going to arrive to the hospital and they're not going to be treated. There was already a couple of weeks ago in the papers that now Arab students from East Jerusalem are not going to be subsidized. If all of a sudden the 4 out of 10 graduate students I have in my laboratory won't get a scholarship because they are Arabs, we just heard, don't forget the Arabs and Palestinians. We have many Arabs in Israel that are an integral part of our society. And they're there because in 1948, I think you're all familiar with the history, they lived there, the villages were there, and they chose to stay. And they chose to continue living under an Israeli leadership. So we have to think of everybody who is in our country today, and we have to realize that we have many enemies around us. I feel like they're just all waiting for us to destroy one another. So those of you who saw me this morning, I was more optimistic. Maybe that's, right after coffee as opposed to what's happening in the evening. But I've been hearing over the days and reading the news and seeing that we really are in a turning point that it seems like an abyss that we might not be able to get out of. So I think the main message that I want to give to you is to stay aware, is to stay involved, is to continue fighting for us. Because I've been in Israel now, the first time I went to Israel was 39 years ago, and I went there because I felt that there was a greater sense of purpose in Israel. I felt, ironically enough, that I was safer in Israel. We need to keep Israel as a place that we can have a future for our children, for our grandchildren, for medical breakthroughs, for scientific breakthroughs, for being the leader. You all remember what happened during COVID. Everyone was looking at Israel because we were leading the way in terms of in the vaccinations. That's what we should always be doing in Israel. But if the laws that are now being enacted in Israel continue, and every day the opposition sits day after, the government sits day after day and comes up with more and more laws and rules and regulations to suppress those of us that are in Israel. If the threats of the doctors, the 2,500 doctors who are threatening to leave Israel, the doors are opening in New Zealand, in Canada, in many states in the United States. What will happen to those Israelis who can't afford to leave, or those Israelis, few Israelis, who feel part of the government but don't truly get the news, don't really know what's happening, because they get a check every month, so now they're happy. Someone is taking care of me, without understanding what the implications of this really scary world that we're moving to. So I want to thank you for being here, but most important, for keeping us in your hearts, keeping us in a place that we should have a future, and to work and not to give up on us, because it's very easy to say, well, the Israeli government is doing terrible things, that's it, just as we heard a moment ago. We're done with Israel, we're not going to support you anymore. This is the time that we need you more than ever, because without your support, we really have no hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.